Alright, let's talk about complex numbers. Complex numbers. Identify each number as real. That's that double back R. Complex is the C. Pure imaginary is a double back I. And non-real complex is this. The slash means not real. So complex, not including real. Those are the different letters symbols you can use to represent these. Now somebody last period was like, Miss Olivares, all these symbols confuse me. Can I just write the word complex? Sure. I'm going to do a little bubble over here. We have complex numbers. All of these are complex. And inside the complex number system, you either have your real or your non-real complex. Now, a real number would look like what? What's a real number? Yes, you're right, but give me another one. 12. Oh, you have it over there. Or 7 halves, a fraction, or a decimal. Those are all real numbers, right? Inside your non-real complex, you have your imaginary. Your imaginary would be like 2i. And that's pure imaginary. Versus your non-real complex would be like 3 plus 2i. Complex numbers are all going to be a plus bi. But wait, how can this be a plus bi and this has no I in the real numbers? Why does this have no I? I is imaginary. What's next to I? B. What would B have to be for real numbers? B is 0 for real numbers. So for real numbers, it has no imaginary component. What about for the pure imaginary? It just has I. It has no. So for this one, A is 0. And then for this one right here, neither one of them are 0. Well, yeah. So what does 12 fall under? 12 is a real number, and all real numbers are complex. So 12 is real and complex. What about negative 4i? That's pure imaginary, and if it's pure imaginary, what else does it fall under? Non-real complex, which is also a complex number. So this one right here falls in all 3 boxes. Yes.
So what's the difference between complex and non-real complex?
So because complex, I mean, there isn't really, all non-real complex are complex. It's just that it does not include these right here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like really, if I could have, I would have had like this open and it's just two different sides of it. But I wanted to make sure it was in certain bubbles. All right, and then 2 plus 3i, what is that? Non-real complex. And non-real complex is complex. All right. Do I have any questions about this? Do I need to do more examples? No? Do y'all want to do these odd ones or no? Can you do them real quick? Just do 1 and 3, please. Ooh, add this right here. What is -7? A real number, which is complex. What about -3 plus 7i? Non-real complex, which is complex. All right. Any questions? All right, next we're going to write each number as a product of a real number and I. So, the square root of -24. First thing I want you to do here is always take out that negative, and what am I going to put in place of it? So this is equivalent to I square root of 24. Now, I want you to do that first. There's going to be a reason later on, but I want you to do that first. Then what? What perfect number, what perfect square goes into 24? So it's going to be 4 and what? 6. What is the square root of 4? So this is 2i square root of 6 is my answer. What about number 5? The square root of -25. 5 what? 5i. Do y'all agree this is I square root of 25? So 5i. What about the square root of -288? So 14, it does divide by 14, but if I were to divide 288 divided by, 288 divided by 4, oh, it does not divide by 14. So the way that I do this is I always start off as high as possible and then I start going down. What's the highest perfect square y'all can think of? 16, that's the highest perfect square you can think of? What? Higher than that. I always start at 144. What's 288 divided by 144? Oh my goodness. So this is 144 times 2. What's the square root of 144? So 12i square root of 2 is my answer. Yeah, don't forget your I. Do I have any questions about this? Questions? All right, next we're going to be solving the quadratic equations using non-real complex solutions of I. What do I do on example 5? How do I solve for x? How do I get x by itself? Subtract 9. And then do what? Square root it. What is the square root of negative 9? Okay, it is. However, I just square rooted both sides, plus or minus. Now, somebody last period asked, but Ms. Olivares, you didn't put plus or minus on any of these up here. Why not? Because they are already square rooted. Am I square rooting them? No. When they are already square rooted, it's not asking you to solve it. It's just asking you to simplify it. You don't have to do that. But if you are solving it and square rooting both sides, then you need the plus or minus. So, and whenever you have the word solve, what do you need to do? Do I have any questions? What about example 6? What do I do in example 6? Sorry, example 6 on the side. Move 4 over. And make it equal 0. And what am I going to do with that? Factor. Can any factor of 15 add up to 4? I can't factor this. What do I do? Don't give up. What do you do when you can't factor a quadratic? I hear somebody saying the qua. What do you do when you can't factor? Louder? What do y'all do when you can't factor something? Quadratic formula. What is quadratic formula? Let's write this in a different color. X equals, did y'all learn a song? X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You never learned that song? No? Pop Goes the Weasel? Do y'all know that song? I also learned it to Roll It in the Deep. Do y'all know that song? By Adele. Rollin' in the Deep by Adele. I'm not a very good singer and I'm recording, so I'm not going to sing it right now, but I can do it later. You think I should? Oh my god, I'm bad at singing. Then you can look back on the video and remember. I also know it's in black and yellow. Somebody last year was like, wow, you're old. Trying to fight me. Okay. What's my A? What's my A? What's my B? Negative 4. What's my C? 15. And I'm just going to plug in these numbers into this equation. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus . What is that? 16 minus 60? What is negative 44? What perfect square does that divide by? 4 and 11. So this is going to give me the square root of 4 is... Do y'all all agree 2i squared roots of 11? Are y'all okay with that? And what does this reduce to? Personally, that's the hardest question you're going to have on this homework. Was that so bad once we reminded you? No. Do I have any questions about that? Dan, you with me? You sure? We just did a whole big kahuna problem. Okay. Kevin, you have a question or you just can't see? Okay. But do you have a question? Okay. We gotta get you glasses. You have glasses? No. Alright, next one. Do I need to do 9 or 11 with you, or y'all feel like y'all are okay with this now? We're okay? Alright, example number 7. 7 says multiply and simplify your answer. Now, what does your gut tell you to do here? Don't cry. Multiply what? Negative 6 and negative 10 will give you the wrong answer. Kevin was right. What do we do first, Kevin? You have to bring out the i's before we can multiply. If you don't, you will get this wrong. Because what's negative 6 times negative 10? Just 60, and the negatives go away. But is that what's going to happen here? What is I times I? I squared. And what's 6 times 10? 60. What perfect square does 60 divide by? 4. I'm going to off to the side over here before I answer this question. Do y'all agree? Maybe I should. I'm going to do it down here so that it doesn't take up. Nope, I'm going to do it up here. Do y'all agree I is the square root of negative 1? What is I squared? If you square this right here, what do you get? Negative 1. Do y'all agree? The square root of negative 1 squared is... What would I cubed be? Negative I. And then what is I to the 4th? 1. This right here, you need to kind of have memorized. Yes, you learned this in college algebra, you learned this in algebra 2. So none of this should be new. It's been a whole year, so, but none of this should be new. All right, are y'all in college algebra right now? Okay. Y'all didn't learn these bottom ones? Okay. Well, if you think about it, I to the 3rd would be these two together. So it would be negative, and then that's I. That's where it comes from. And then I to the 4th would be this one squared. What's negative 1 squared? That's where it comes from. Okay? All right, so let's go back here. We have I squared. What did we say I squared was? Negative 1. So this is going to be what? Negative 2 square root of 15. Does that make sense? I squared is negative 1, so it's negative 2 square root of 15. Do you want to do another, or are we okay? Do y'all want to do another, or are we okay? Do another, or are we okay? Okay. What about example 8? What do I do first? Take out the I. So that's going to give me I square root of 48 over square root of 24. Then what am I going to do? Boys, look up here, please. What do I do next? So, although your brain is, yes, I would rationalize, there's actually an easier way. I can make this square root go over the whole thing. Do y'all agree with that? What's 48 over 24? Isn't that way easier than rationalizing and then figuring out, simplifying those radicals? So sometimes it is easier when you're dividing just to divide them out. Could you have rationalized and done all that? Yeah, you would get the same answer, but this is way easier. Real quick, I want to do 15 with you. What would I do on 15? Take out the i's. And then what? The i's can cancel. And what are you going to be left with? 30 over 10, which is, please don't put 3 as your answer. Square root of 3. Does that make sense? So just be careful, because a lot of people do write 3 and they move on with their life. Don't do that. It's square root of 3. Any questions on this? Which one? Thursday. Yeah, and Wednesday's going to be a homework day, so you'll have this done before then. All right, example 9 on the back. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 examples left to go. Example 9. It says write each answer in standard form A plus BI. Standard form is A plus BI. What am I going to do right here? Say that again. Simplify. So this is going to be negative A plus, what perfect square does 120, I don't know. Do y'all know what 128 divides into? So I could do 128 divided by 121. No, we know that's not going to happen. It's not going to divide by 181. I'm just ignoring y'all so that I can prove my point. And it is 64. So 64 times, was it 2? So what is the square root of 64? Don't lose your eye when you're doing that. And what can I do? And you just get a whole bunch of 2's as your answer. Any questions? We okay? What about adding or subtracting? How do we add these? How am I going to add them? Just add them. What do I add? 3 and negative 2 is 1. Negative 4i and 6i is, and that's your answer. Add your like terms. Pretend they're x's. Add your like terms. Now be careful with subtracting. This next one is a subtraction sign. What do I do with subtracting? I have to distribute this negative. Negative 6, and that's going to become a positive 7i. Don't forget, a negative and a negative is a positive. So what does this become? What is negative 4 minus 6? And then 3i and 7i is... Are y'all okay with adding and subtracting? All right, what about multiplying? What do I got to do to multiply? Foil. Thank you. I have to foil. Distribute that first number. What's 2 times 3? And 2 times 4i. And then distribute the second one. That's a negative 3i. What is negative 3i times 3? And what is negative 3 times 4i? Negative 12i squared. What did we say I squared was? Negative 1. And then I'm going to combine my i's real quick. So I get 6 minus 1i. It's going to become a plus 12. Do y'all agree with that? And then what's 6 plus 12? And you do not need to write the 1. You can just write 18 minus I. Remember, standard form is A plus BI. What about dividing? How would you divide these? Close, not reciprocal. What's that called? Conjugate. We are multiplying the numerator and denominator by the conjugate. Write this down, please. I'm just foiling. Remember, the reason we do that is because on the bottom it's a difference of 2 squares. Again, what's I squared? Negative 1, so this is going to be... What do I get here? What'd y'all get? And I do want it in standard form. So what is 13 over 26? So it's going to be 1/2 plus 1/2 I. Don't leave it as one big fraction. I want it in standard form, please. It needs to be an A plus BI. A test question might be like, hey, simplify this. What's the value of A? Questions? All right, last step. How do I simplify I to the 15th power? What would be the best approach to this? What did we talk about? Jaime? So how did you just get that just by looking at it? Right.
And so, I don't know.
You just went backwards. Okay, so I'm going to do this logically. I'm perfectly fine with you doing it the way you did. I'm going to show you how to do it out, and then I'll show you a quick way to do it. Remember on the front we talked about I to the 4th is 1? So for this, I would do as many I to the 4th as I could. I to the 4th, I to the 4th, I to the 4th. Do y'all agree that right there is 12? So what does my next I need to be? I to the 3rd. What are all my I to the 4ths? Those are just 1 times 1 times, excuse me. And what did we say I to the 3rd was? Negative I. So what is 1 times 1 times negative I? Negative I. Now, I'm going to go a different way than you went, Jaime. But could you simply figure out what is the closest number to the 4th here without going over? So could you instead have just done I to the 12th times I to the 3rd? I to the 12th would be 1 and then I to the 3rd. So that's another way you could have done this. That's how I would do these down here. I want you to do 27 real quick, please. Did you get something like that for 27? And again, 24 is 1 because it's a multiple of 4. Does that make sense? All right, we are done for today. I do want to let you know that all of the evens are what are due on Thursday. You have about 7 minutes. You can maybe do, I would do 28 and 2 through 8 really quickly right now. And then that way you don't have time, or you already done them as we were going along. But this paper, you can turn in this paper. You can do it on a separate sheet of paper, the evens, but to me there was enough room for me to do them all, so you can do them all on this paper if you would like to turn this in. All right, this is due on Thursday, and again, Wednesday you have a day to do it. So we're done for today.